everybody. This is Camila and Andrea, and we're gonna present to you the Neurolinguistic Programming method. First I'm gonna give you a little bit of background to what this is about, and this is a series of philosophy thoughts and a set of techniques that worked as a therapy for as an alternative form of therapy that were first developed by Richard Bandler and John Grinder. So what happened back in the day was that he was studying psychology and he was studying linguistics, and they got together because they were very interested in how people can influence each other and how effective communicators could express themselves. And so what they did was study the behavior of very good therapists, successful therapists, and see how that type of behavior could be duplicated. And that means that they wanted to see how they express themselves, how they cater to their clients, how they were interacting with them, so they could teach that, so they could be able to transfer that to other people. So when they were studying this therapist, they noticed something that they had all in common. They had something similar. That was the fact that they all followed the same pattern when they were relating to their clients and when the language they use, and also the thoughts and beliefs they had about themselves and what they were doing. So this neurolinguistic programming method was mainly developed to help the therapist in building rapport with their clients and to be able to ask them about their internal and external views of the world and how they could improve themselves and achieve their goals. So after that, they wanted to also fill the gap that was in psychology back then, because in the 1970s, when this was all developed, there was not so much research about this, and therapists were not as interested in the client and their well-being and how they felt, and they wanted to fill in that. They wanted to be able to change that type of thought. So the NLP model provides a theoretical framework and a set of techniques that help these therapists or the people that practice that in guiding the improvement, the therapeutic change. But of course, this doesn't only apply to psychology. This also applies in other fields like sales, sports training, marketing training, and as well as the language teaching field. So since this is like a very general communicating skills method, they generally wanted to send this to the people and give them the type of training that they needed for the field that they were in. For example, if you were a sports trainer, as I mentioned before, you had to have training for that specific thing. As well as if you are a teacher, you have to get training for what you're doing, that is teaching. So this applies to a lot of fields and a lot of techniques to do it. And so this was mainly not created for the language teaching field. This was not like, it wasn't in mind, but since it had a lot of attention from the people that were very humanistic, and the fact that this was all centered around the thoughts towards people, towards yourself, and the views of the world, and self-expression, self-awareness. They wanted to include the language teaching field into this and be able to, carry it out with the students and the teachers. Okay, now I'm going to talk about the approach. So one might think that the neurolinguistic programming method might have to do with neurolinguistics, with the science, with the field of neurolinguistics, but it has nothing to do with that. The word neuro in this method means that it refers to beliefs about the brain and how it functions. So there is actually little to no information or research on the word neuro, and that it has like some type of connection to the actual field of neurolinguistics. And the word linguistic in this method means that it refers to a theory of communication that tries to explain verbal and non-verbal information processing. Later, the programming refers to observable patterns of thought and behavior. Some of the practitioners of the NLP think that they are able to decode and reprogram a brain like they would to a computer, that they would use their techniques to decode the way the brain functions, just the same way they would decode a computer and would use programming and stuff like that. Also, modeling is very important to the NLP because modeling skill means that you can model your emotions, your experiences, your thoughts, and shape them into what you are today, and shape them into your personality and what you do and how you move around with people. So that is very important, and it says that when you model a skill like successfully, that leads to excellence. So when you do that, you are very good at what you're doing, and you're a very assertive person towards the other people. Also, it is possible that you model your skill so others can model theirs, like they can follow your advice, they can follow the things you do, so they are able to be as communicative as you are and be as assertive as you are as well. Right now, Rebel and Norman offer the following definition of what neuro linguistic and programming means to them. So the neuro part of NLP has to do with the experience of the world that we have through our senses and how we can decode that in our brain with our neurological functions. The linguistic part of NLP has to do with how we use language and how we can use that language in a very good way to be able to communicate everything in the best way possible, and how we interpret the world around us and how we can build it for us and for other people. So, for example, you say the blue sky or the very beautiful house, and you're able to do that thanks to the linguistic part of your brain. The programming in the neurolinguistic programming method has to do with the training we do to ourselves to think, act, and speak, so we can find new and positive ways to release our potential, and that can also help other people to be as good as we are, and we can interact better and have a good communication exchange and stuff like that.
Now we're going to talk about the design. So the NLP says that there are four principles, which are the first one, outcomes, which says that it's important to know what we want in order to achieve what the goals we have. So the second one is rapport. As the NLP is very humanistic, it says that it's important to establish a rapport with yourself and later with others. Rapport is meeting the other in their world, and for example, is to have empathy with the others, is to try to understand the others, their culture, their values, in order to be respectful with them. And later we have sensory acuity, which says that we have to be attentive at everything. So, for example, we have to look at, listen to, and feel what is going on. And finally, we have flexibility, which says that we have to constantly change the way we do things until we get what we want. Also, there are 13 presuppositions that must guide language teacher classes. The first one is mind and body are connected. It says that they are part of the same system, and one affects the other. Second one says that there are different maps of the world. It says that everyone has different thoughts, beliefs, language, for example, and we have to respect that. The other says that there are no failure, only feedback, and that error is interpreted as an opportunity to improve. The map becomes the territory. Know what you want only until you get resources are within us. Communication is also nonverbal. Non-conscious mind is benevolent. Communication is also non-conscious. Behavior has positive intentions. Meaning of my communication is the response I get. Excellent behavior leads to excellence, and most flexible elements will be the more influential. Now, as I explain what is rapport, there are some examples of situations that can happen frequently in a classroom. For example, the student says, I hate this stuff, it's such a waste of time. What we must respond to that must be, is a part of you saying that you want to be sure of your time is well spent today? Those responses could be applied if you want to implement the NLP theory in your classes. Other example can be, everyone says that, it makes me sick. And you can respond, who says that? The other is, I can do it. You as teacher might respond, what specifically can you do? And you can explain what the student can understand. And finally, this is all theory. And we must say, are you saying you want practical suggestions? So you have to be concerned about what the student wants. Now our first activity, which wants to activate both hemispheres of our brain. One is focused on catching a ball or object, and the other is focused on produced language. For example, we have this object, and I'm going to throw it to Camila. And I'm going to say the numbers in Spanish, and she is going to respond in English. So, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
6. Okay, at the beginning it can be difficult, but with time you get used to it, and you can also use questions to help the brain get activated. For example, what's your favorite color?
blue,
What's your favorite food?
pizza,
What do you like about yourself?
my hair.
And so on and so forth, and you can do it with many other things. So for our next activity, we plan that we have 2 people, and so one of them, we ask them what their favorite song is, and since this theory is really based on the interests of the person and what they like, and to be close to that person, so what that will do is that it would activate the brain, and since it's like the favorite song, it says that this person could be able to read the lips of the other person. The other person is reading something, and this other person with the headphones on has to guess what the other person is saying, reading the lips. And since it's their favorite song, maybe they are going to be more concentrated or more focused, since the theory says it, that the interest like has a lot of influence in the brain and stuff. So that is our second activity.
The previous activity, we use words related to music and culture. Now, those words that the students learned, they have to write them in the students' back, in their group's back. For example, I will write music. And with that, she's going to guess that, and she's going to write the word in the board. So this is to activate all the senses, as the theory says, that senses are really important to notice what is happening around us, and that led us to learn easily.
So finally, we came to the conclusion that this method is really different and interesting because it's more focused on the interest, the well-being, the self-expression, self-awareness, and self-improvement of the person. Also, it's not only applied to one field, but also many fields, and that is really interesting to us.
Well, finally, to conclude our class, we're going to ask students how did they feel with the activity, and also we will ask them for suggestions for next class. So that's all for today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.